that time it is? It's time for the Muckrakers with your hosts, Justin Luton and Cynthia Phillips, where they talk about life, liberty, and hope.
Welcome back to Muckrakers. We have a great guest, Keith Grant.
Hi, how are you?
Tell us about yourself.
Well, my name's Keith Grant. I am running for school board seat 3 in Magnolia ISD. I am also running for precinct chair 29 on the May 24th election as well. So I am a Christian conservative, and I am interested in making Magnolia ISD and the greater Magnolia area a little more safer and productive for us.
All right.
Very good.
So I bet you can't guess what we're going to be talking about. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
Education.
Education. It's important.
There's two things I think, and that are very, very important right now. And number one is the education system. Number two is the voter integrity, or I should say election integrity.
Yeah.
But we've already had the election integrity discussion.
Yes.
When you talk about the education in our system. So, Muckrakers, we sift through the muck to find the good, and we talk about life, liberty, and hope. Mm-hmm. And I always say pursuit of happiness as well, because that's always part of it. That's the whole idea behind hope. It's pursuit of happiness, right?
Exactly.
We have hope to get us where we're happy. Are we ever happy? Well, that's up to you, right?
Right.
But in order to do that, we have to have good education. And
Yes.
so I'm excited to have you on. Cindy was kind enough
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
gracious enough
Well.
to find you.
I'm glad you did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good find. Very good find.
Yeah,
I was
this-
very impressed with you.
This
Very
is
impressed.
an important message to get out to people.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
is.
So first off, you're running for school board.
Mm-hmm.
When's that election happening?
May 7th.
May 7th.
Mhm.
It's coming up quick.
Very quick.
It is.
Yes.
And what made you think about running?
Well, I mean, I think 2020 was a pretty big wake-up call for a lot of parents during homeschooling. Well, not homeschooling, but remote learning.
Yeah.
Remote
Yes.
learning.
Homeschooling
Oh, yeah, I
might be
remember.
a better option at this point for a lot of people, but
Yeah.
the remote learning thing was, you
Yeah.
cracked the door open to what was actually happening inside people's
Absolutely.
classrooms and
Yeah.
the things that are taking place at Loudoun County. That was, a loud and clear wake-up call for a lot of parents as well, myself being one of those parents.
Yeah.
So,
that was a big deal.
I have moved into Magnolia recently. I've only been here a year, but my wife and I have a young daughter. She's 1 year old, and she'll be attending MISD soon.
Soon enough.
Yeah,
it
very
it
soon.
goes at a blink of an eye. I
does.
promise
It
you
does.
that.
It does.
And
It does.
in doing a lot of research and figuring out what's happening in this school district, I have a lot of concerns, and I don't want to be that person who stands on the outside of the issues and complains about them. I want to be someone who is willing to step up and put myself in the arena and try to be the person who solves the problems.
Yeah.
That's interesting you say that. I was having a discussion the other day how so many people are on the sidelines. It's like playing soccer. Everybody has their own position, and you've got your players out there, right? You've got your fullbacks, you have your halfbacks, and you have your forwards, and your goalie, of course. And each person has to have their position. But what's interesting is you always look at the sidelines. There's always a lot more people on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And it's like, folks, you need to get off the sidelines and actually get on the field
Get in
and
the game.
help move that ball forward.
That's right.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, what position you play in soccer?
I'm more of a football and baseball guy personally.
There you
so,
go.
Yeah. As long as you're on the field, that's all that
That's right.
matters.
Yeah, but I guess
So-
if I were to use a soccer analogy, I would say I'd be the goalie because
Yeah.
I would be the person standing up to, the tide. What I've found very concerning is that in the last 4 years in Magnolia ISD, there's not been a single uncontested vote. So everything that's come across the board has been voted for positively, unanimously by everybody on the board, and I find it incredibly hard to believe that there hasn't been any bad policy proposals.
Right.
Nothing. So anything
That's
that
interesting.
the administration says should happen, just happens.
This happens. Wow.
So-
So what are some of the things that you have identified that do need to be addressed in Magnolia ISD? What are some of the issues?
So I think the biggest issue that I have been able to come across is social emotional learning.
Okay.
what that started out as was a good thing. You remember when we were in school ages ago, there was, speech class for people who, had a problem with lisp or couldn't pronounce their R's properly.
Right.
A teacher would come around to those classrooms, pull those students out, take them somewhere into a different classroom, and work on those things. So social emotional learning started out as a positive thing. It was something like that. It would take the bullies, the misfits, the emotionally stunted people that were identified in those classrooms, and pull them out, and it had great success. It taught them empathy. It taught them, a better way to socialize with their peers and with the adults around them, and it garnered a lot of praise. So of course, the American education system took that good thing and ruined it by making it a broad blanket thing to force upon every student in America. And that's never been a good approach to anything.
Right.
There's a big difference between targeted learning and, throwing it out to the masses.
Yeah.
What it's become now is it's psychological warfare on our children.
Yeah.
They're
So I have a question for you. What you just said, when did the emotional learning start that you know of? And then when did it get adopted? I'm guessing at the federal level, where they took it, massaged it, and made it into something that is completely not what it was meant to be.
Right. So it came to at the beginnings in the late 90s and early 2000s. Part of the ESSER funds for COVID relief that have gone out to schools everywhere. In fact, Magnolia ISD has accepted $20 million in ESSER funds. There is
Sure, there's strings attached to that.
there is strings attached to
Just a
that.
few.
20% of that money has to go towards social emotional learning in some degree. Okay, so and they have left it up to the school board programs or school boards to choose the programs that they were going to implement. So grades K through 3 have implemented a program called Second Step, and then grades 4 through 12 have implemented one called Character Strong. Both of these programs are under the CASEL Foundation. That's CASEL. You can think of that as like the brand name for social emotional learning, which is funded largely in part by Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg.
Okay, we'll have to put
Two
that link.
wonderful, upstanding people
Oh, I
in
know,
our
right?
community.
Who have great, love for conservative values.
Oh yeah, the man who invented the blue screen of death. I always want to take advice from that guy.
Right.
I'm
And
sorry.
it is interesting that we bring up the strings attached, and there's strings attached in the school realm. Brings up other funds for under the guise of coronavirus. The American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA. We hear a lot about ARPA funds, and not too many people understand that there is actual, and I have it right here, I can read it straight out of the U.S. Treasury Department, all 151 pages from the U.S. Treasury Department that describes the contractual agreements that come with anybody who accepts the ARPA funds. And everyone, they call us recipients or sub-recipients. So it includes the sub-recipients in here by name, sub-recipients, which means anyone who passes it down. If your state receives ARPA funds and those go to the county, and then the county to the individuals or the school districts or wherever, then they are bound by Section 35.9, compliance with applicable law, that says a recipient, which includes sub-recipients, must comply with all other applicable federal statutes, regulations, and executive orders. And a recipient shall provide for compliance with the American Rescue Plan Act, this subpart, and any interpretive guidance by other parties in the agreements it enters into with other parties relating to these funds. That's pretty broad
That's
and scary.
yes, it is. Yeah.
Because we can imagine what all that entails.
People need to understand that's a must in there.
Must.
That's
Must
not a
comply.
might.
Yeah.
Might if you want to. No, it's
comply.
a must.
Yeah.
Comply.
Must comply. And you can find this document. You can just look it up on the U.S. Treasury Department. It's straight up U.S. Treasury Department under ARPA funds.
Authoritarians tend to write authoritative.
Very good.
Exactly.
True. And this is just one example of the contractual language that's in the 151 pages. It's full.
So you can be brain dead on Bacardi 151 or read that.
Yes.
151 pages.
Right.
But it should alarm you. I mean, you can yawn, but it's like it should alarm you. It should alarm people.
Oh, yeah.
But these are the things that they're sliding in, and same
Sure.
thing with the school districts. They don't understand, and there's a lot of other things that the parents don't understand, and taxpayers. So, can you address some of those?
Sure. I mean, like I guess social emotional learning is a concern, but the IB program is also a major concern.
And it sounds so good.
It does sound good,
yeah.
and you know what? There are clear benefits for students. You know, those benefits do exist. They can't be dismissed.
Right.
But what also can't be dismissed is, you know, where that program came from, who runs it, the ideologies that it supports,
And what the end goal is.
what the end goal is,
Yes.
yes, which is, you know, global citizenship,
Yes.
and, you know, taking away the idea of American exceptionalism.
Exactly.
But if you even look beyond, you know, just the ideological tilt that it provides, it's very fiscally irresponsible
Yeah.
for any school district to fund this thing. I believe it's just in 2021 spent $38,000 on testing packets alone. That's
Jesus.
just on testing materials. $38,000. That doesn't account for the fees it costs for the kids to join it. Doesn't count for anything else that they're going to.
So you actually have to
like
join this.
Yes,
You have to spend some money on joining this.
And
You
who can join?
Wow.
It's pretty much the most elite students that there are. So if they're,
So it's not a program for all.
it's not a program for all. It is a program for when they're the best of the best.
And who pays for it?
And the taxpayer does.
So we all pay for it.
We all pay for it.
But it's just for a few.
It benefits
Okay.
only like the elite 1%. Of
Everything
that
everything
school.
seems backwards. It's like folding itself onto itself. It's, to me, the way I see this is it's globalist citizen. So to me, it's like, oh, everybody's just the same. But then the only people that can get into this are the elite folks.
Right.
And who defines elite folks? That's an arbitrary question. We don't know. They've outlined something. I don't know what it is. But I'm thinking to myself, you know, it doesn't make sense. It says the messaging is folding in on itself. Does it make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Everything is on its head. Like that's,
Yeah.
that's
It
just, you know,
Yeah.
when leftists are at the wheel, they use language to twist and distort
Right.
reality.
They do.
And,
Absolutely.
You know, that's the game that they're really good at. And,
Right.
You know,
What's good is bad and what's bad is good.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's their moral compass is
Yeah.
to just
Exactly.
twist things to their will.
Yeah.
Even
Absolutely.
words.
Even
Oh,
especially
yeah.
words.
Especially words. Yeah,
Especially
words.
I'm
Those
going to
holes.
redefine this word.
That is their
Yeah.
those their tools. Words
is.
words are powerful.
Yeah,
Words are
they are.
powerful things. That's why when we actually do latch on to a word that they don't like groomer,
Yeah.
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
like there's a huge pushback right now
I
about
imagine.
the, you know, us fighting back about the so-called "Don't Say Gay" bill, which is really, you know,
It's
a parental
not it.
rights
There's
and
nothing-
education
That's
bill.
it.
There's
That's
nothing
it.
on that that says
There's
don't
nothing
say
in there.
gay.
Nothing
Well,
in
we
there
can
at
go
all.
back. You mentioned election
Oh,
integrity,
Lord.
and I know we're not talking about election integrity today, but it's the same thing when you talk about our election integrity bills that they turn around and call voter suppression bills.
Right,
It's
right.
like, how is it suppressing your vote? I don't know, but
It isn't.
It isn't, exactly.
Because they can't produce a single person who has been barred from
Been-
voting.
Right.
It doesn't
No.
exist.
It doesn't exist, but it's that twist, that play on words and twist it, and
Yeah.
you're right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think that folds back also onto the education. Why
Yeah.
people need the shift in education. To me, from what I've seen, has kind of made people not use their critical thinking. It's one of those situations where if I hire somebody to do a job and they're younger, say in their 20s, and I ask them to use critical thinking to develop something, it doesn't matter what it is, they're always coming back to me. They're always, hey, what is this? Look it up. Look, you have this fantastic tool called the internet. Look it up. Figure it out. Hey, math, here's all the formulas. Figure that out.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how so many folks these days, so many younger folks can't put two and two together anymore. Matter of fact, I've even heard that some leftists have said, well, 2 + 2 actually equals 5. It's like, no,
Right.
no,
Yeah.
no.
If you're in
math
19
is math is math.
If you're in 1984 by George Orwell, it is.
Correct.
Yeah, you
But
know?
those
Yeah.
are words on a piece of
Uh-huh.
paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you
so-
know, in this technological age, with the entire, you know, sum of human knowledge in your pocket, ignorance is a choice.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
true.
So
That
I
is
mean,
true.
You have to do
That's
research.
right.
You have to look this stuff, and you have to be
Absolutely.
engaged. If
Yeah.
you're not engaged, you're just allowing this to happen.
That is
Exactly.
so true, and that brings us back to what you're doing, and we appreciate you getting engaged. And what are some of the things that you foresee being able to do upon being elected into the position?
One of the first things I want to do is improve transparency, because
That's good.
there isn't any
No,
right
there's
now.
not.
Like there is the semblance of transparency, right? So you can look at the budget, but the budget is all in bullet points.
Yeah.
It's all general topics, and there is no breakdown. You can't click it and look at everything else. You know what
Wow.
I'm saying? Which is perfect for a profits and loss report in the business world, but it doesn't allow you to follow the money, which we need to do as taxpayers.
Well,
We
I'd
need to
say-
know where our money is
Absolutely.
being
I'd
spent.
say it's
Absolutely.
actually bad in business too,
Well, it
because
is
you
bad in
you need
business, yeah.
you've got to know where that money's being spent.
But in business, you can hit the line, and there will be a drop down.
Oh, yeah,
You can
there will
follow
be a
that
drop
money.
down,
Right.
right.
I'm saying,
Yeah,
because
right.
that's your money
Yeah.
in business, and it's
But-
our money as taxpayers in school districts.
But they don't have
So-
that. They don't have the sub bullets. Is what
No,
you're saying.
and we should not
Oh,
have
wow.
to. We should not have to put in a Freedom of Information Act request to get information out of school districts.
That's,
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no,
It
that
makes me
is.
wonder what they would provide if you did a FOIA. If you did a FOIA, what would they do? They would give you the receipts? No, I don't think so. What would they do? Because if they're not, you know what I'm saying, right?
Right. Yeah. No.
I don't-
You would have to be incredibly specific with the information that
That's
you're
what I'm
requesting.
thinking.
Incredibly specific.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they can feed you whatever they want to feed.
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
And
But you're right, that is all information that should be out there. Anytime things are not transparent, I don't care if it's in the school board, I don't care if it's at the county level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If it's not transparent or they're doing things behind closed doors,
Yep.
that's a red flag.
Speaking of transparency, too, one of the things I noticed attending school board meetings is they have somewhat recently moved the comments section to the end of the meeting. So
Thing now.
yes,
That's
So- Gee,
I wonder
interesting.
why they
That's
did
a new,
that.
that's a new development.
how it is
so-
now is they assemble, they do the pledges, they do the prayer, and then they go right into an award ceremony that lasts about an hour, and then they go to intermission. During that intermission, 90% of the room leaves.
Leaves,
So when you come back in, there is only the concerned parents
That's
and
right.
staff.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're speaking to an empty room at that
Exactly.
point.
But now,
That shouldn't be.
are the
Boy.
school board meetings similar to, let's just, for example, say the county commissioner courts? Are they videoed?
Yes, they are.
So,
yeah,
so
it is
at least
available on
it's
YouTube.
information that you can.
You can look it up.
And so, I think that part of getting the information to people is we need to, as citizens, start go on and we can capture that and, hey, why don't you take a look at these comments? Why don't
Yeah.
you take a look at what's happened and let people,
But
not
again,
everybody
yeah,
will
no, of
do
course.
it,
But
yeah.
an informed public is an engaged
That's
public.
it.
That's exactly
So,
right.
when there is the most people in that room, that's when we should be airing grievances. That's when
Yes.
we should be talking about the problems that we see,
Yes.
so that other people can either dismiss it. That's
Yes,
fine.
fine.
That's fine. Hey, I don't agree with that.
Right.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fine. But if they do agree with it, they then have the chance to bring their voice to the topic,
Absolutely.
which is important.
You know,
it's
it's,
huge.
you bring that up, and that's also part of the education system itself. Is nowadays, with that critical thinking we were just talking about, you can't have a differing opinion. That people can't seem to have a good conversation with differing ideas. I was talking about this 2 weeks ago on Facebook. I asked somebody a specific question about Ukraine. I'm not talking about Ukraine, but I just asked them. This person thought President Zelensky was this great hero. And I just simply asked, a year ago or so, we were saying this guy is a little bit corrupt, and now you're saying he's a hero. I'd love to hear your take. Instead of having a conversation, the guy focused on his emotions
Yes.
and just went ballistic. I'm like,
That
so
does not-
that is something that needs to be fixed in education. We
Yeah.
got to be able to have a good conversation of differing ideas
absolutely.
and not put emotion in front of it. Logic has to, I mean, you can be emotional, but logic has to be in there too.
Right.
There's got to be, the levels there need to be the same.
Well, also, logical conversations happen on a face-to-face basis. They don't happen
Yes.
online.
Exactly.
They don't
Oh,
happen
that's the
on
truth.
social media.
When you hide behind.
Yeah.
it's
Keyboard
right.
warriors, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I get into arguments with people on the internet
Yeah.
who would never say these things to me.
Never.
truth, too.
It's
They
so
would
true.
never. Like, I mean, it just, that's not how
Yeah,
people
I know this
operate
guy.
in
He
the
lives
real
just down
world.
the street from me,
Yeah.
so.
So maybe he
It's-
would have told you anyway, but no.
It's one of those things where I treat it as somebody I'm talking to as I'm talking to somebody face to face,
Mhm.
Right.
and especially this guy, and When you talk amongst friends, you would expect that level of respect, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Just is
It
amazing
has
how.
changed the course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and he's a younger guy,
If I could circle back really quickly to the social and emotional learning aspect,
Yes.
one of the things that they're
This is
doing
part of that.
is daily mental health checks, right? So a lot of people don't
Yes.
understand that, and some of the
Yes.
questions that kids are asked in these surveys that they're given on a daily basis, and these are questions that have leaked from other school districts. It might be things like, what is your family's income? Are any of your parents doctors? That's a weird one.
Yeah.
Some of the ones that are a little bit worse might include, when do you think it's all right to start kissing someone? Or how do you feel about your growing breasts?
See, these things are
Wow.
not
Wow.
stuff
Right.
that
It's-
should be put in
At all.
schools.
It's no one's business.
And,
No
and
one's
how
business.
is
That
this even
privacy.
a social, what was it? Emotional?
Social emotional.
Social emotional learning. So what they do is
Yeah.
they take this information and it goes into a database that they can later use to judge the social acceptability of your student and you.
Oh my gosh.
So I mean,
All comes back to that contact tracing or the tracking, the tracking, not contact
Yeah.
tracing, but the tracking. They're tracking your data. They're tracking
it's-
your.
yeah, data is the key.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
That's that's what profit is garnered from
So-
these days.
Yes,
It's
it
from their
is.
data.
It
The
is.
thing that we had a conversation on many moons ago was social scores.
Mhm.
Social scores is being implemented in
ESGs. Yep.
Yeah, in China, and and obviously they're trying to do it here because the first step was the COVID card,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but the next step was, has this person followed our rules, and if not, we dock them some points. They're trying to push this.
So they're already doing it.
They're already doing it
at
at
a
school.
corporate level too.
Yes, that's true.
So that in the corporate world, it's an ESG score.
I
So
call
if you're
that
not-
corporate fascism, by
It
the way.
is.
And
Yeah.
anyways, we can go on that another day.
That's a tangent. Yeah.
I can
okay.
go so
Well,
nuts on
but
that.
it's full circle. It relates, and
Yes,
and
it
I
is.
say back to the education realm. We were having this discussion earlier. Was that this is not a quick fix, and this was not a quick thing that happened. We have turned a blind eye to the education system for decades now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And allowed, the way I see it is we have allowed civics to be taken out so that people don't understand. Even when I was in school so long ago, civics was not taught to the degree where I did not graduate from high school and understand what my role as a citizen in my community looked like.
yeah.
Nope.
I just thought show up and vote. And oh, by the way, let me go ask somebody how to vote because I don't even know who to vote for, right? I wasn't taught how to vet people. It all goes back to lacking in the education system. So
Yes.
what do you see as moving forward? Do you see a bringing back some kind of really healthy civics?
I want to amend her thoughts too.
Yeah.
It needs to be more local too, because
Absolutely.
I was in intermediate school and we did a mock election of the presidential election. Well, that doesn't really the president, the feds, that is
So far away.
far away.
Yeah.
It doesn't really affect us. And I think what needs to happen is bring it in to the home.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. The most important elections that happen in America happen at the local level.
Exactly.
Like that's blatantly true.
Yeah.
And I agree that not only does civics need to be brought back to education, but sort of basic life skills.
yes.
So one of the cool things that is happening in Magnolia right now is the Magnolia Rotary Club is doing mock interviews with kids for jobs, so that from kids 8th grade and up can learn how to sit down in a room with a prospective employer and conduct themselves in a professional manner, which is being someone who's been in business for 20 years, sorely lacking at these days.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
one of the
That is
first
very
things I
true.
do when I do an interview is I'll put them at a table alone for about 10 minutes and I wait to see if their phone comes out of their pocket. And if it does, I do not hire that person
bet.
because as soon as I give them the job, what's going to happen?
I mean, fiddle
Right.
around with their phone. Yeah.
Instantly, right?
Exactly.
There is a serious addiction to
Yes,
not only
there is.
technology but to social media and
Yes.
these things. It pulls them back in time and time again.
Yeah.
And speaking back towards mental health, I think that there has to be some kind of campaign from an educational standpoint to warn parents that this stuff is dangerous for kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's been a 40% increase in transgenderism since TikTok took
Yeah.
over.
Yes, yeah.
40% increase
Yeah.
across the nation of
Yeah.
kids identifying as something other than male or female.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's alarming.
That is incredibly alarming, and it's tied into all
It is
that
absolutely,
stuff.
and too much time on electronics, on that type of stuff. It's devastating to
So
our kids.
I heard this on a separate podcast recently. Someone brought up the fact that if your kid said, "Hey, I want to go have a sleepover somewhere," you're going to want to talk to that kid's parents.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to want to know what you might even want to meet them.
Yes.
To know what kind of situation you're putting your child into.
We definitely do that.
Absolutely.
But we'll send our kids off to their room alone with their cell phone or their laptop, talking to who knows who.
That's actually
They might
right.
as well be sleeping in somebody else's house.
It
That's
is
very true.
true.
You have games like Roblox where it's very social. There's a lot of social interactions,
Mm-hmm.
and you really need to know who in the world your kids are talking to,
Yes.
because on the other side, that could be an adult playing as a kid, just
Yeah.
feeling it out. Oh,
Yeah.
hey, let me see this. Let me see. And 6 months later, they're telling the kid, "Does your parents blah blah blah? Hey, where do you live? Hey, can you meet me over here? Don't tell your parents."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff is scary. It's very
it is
true.
scary. It
Well,
is
And
when we were kids,
Yeah.
you kind of adapted the behaviors of the people that your friends, the people
Oh,
you hung
yeah,
out with, right?
absolutely.
That was
That's
your
right.
group identity,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Most kids' group identity is now formed online.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
they have friends that they go to via telephone. They might
Yeah.
never meet these people in life, but they will swear that they are,
Friends.
Friends.
And it
Yeah.
could be somebody in their 40s, and you don't even know.
That's exactly
You're
right.
any
identifying.
idea.
Yeah.
But
No.
those people, I mean, these kids are identifying with those people more than people in their social
Yeah.
It comes back
influence
to
or their
education.
family.
It comes back to education. I would say this education of parents.
Yes.
Educating parents to
Yes.
say this is not a safe little device,
Mhm.
and that there are parental controls you can put on these things, and the kids will complain at first. Of
course.
They
Yeah.
complain, but my friends all have this. That's when I think we have to start building community with other parents
Exactly.
and say, hey, let's all agree to do this together, and let's all agree to block these things on all of our kids' phones so
Yes.
that they're not able to see these things. And I love the rule of no electronics except out in the living room or out,
Yeah.
and once you get
Or
into
it
your
can be
bedroom, it all
supervised.
parks. You park it at this little electronic station in the kitchen.
Yeah. And
And-
please, parents, get your kids off TikTok.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
kidding, no kidding.
It's-
Really, off of I would say any social media is just
Yeah.
so dangerous.
Oh,
It
that
is.
is.
It is.
It is.
It's so they've done so many studies. I keep saying that parents raising children right now are kind of the experiment. That we're seeing the end of the experiment.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
end
yeah,
of raising a generation on electronics. My kids are just at the age where it was all kind of starting, and so they've come back and thanked me for doing things like not letting them have computers in the room, not
Like
letting
kicking them out of the door, saying, "Go play
them
outside."
go play outside, and they did. They were out. They would
Yeah.
prefer to be outside, getting playing in the mud. But that's the kind of thing that we're seeing. Even just handing your kid an iPad to watch a movie to keep them quiet.
Yeah.
All of
know.
that electronic screen time is
Yeah.
just really. They're seeing the damage, if you will.
Yeah.
that's been-
Again, I've run restaurants for over 20 years, and the trend now is you see a family of four come in, mom, dad, two kids, and
They're
once
all
they
on
get
the
at the
phone.
table, they all put up their phones, and they are not engaged with each other
No.
anymore. Like this,
No.
you know.
That's another good rule to have, right?
Yeah.
Everybody when you're at the dinner table,
Mhm.
no
Like, I mean,
electronics.
Yep.
The technology industry is driven by the left, and the left is already against, the typical American family. They
Yeah.
wanna destroy
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah,
families,
it is true.
And they're
and
doing it.
They're doing it, yeah.
Yeah.
Even if that is not the intentional method, they have other intentional methods to be sure. But
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's still happening
Yeah, definitely.
right in front of us,
Absolutely.
all of us. And if more people don't stand up and start talking about this stuff,
Yes.
and putting policies in place in schools,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just going to get worse.
Yeah,
I
I think that's really good, and getting you into a position where you can see the forefront of what education is doing, especially in Magnolia, and allowing that transparency, but also not just transparency. I think the feedback mechanism needs to be there too.
Yeah.
The active feedback mechanism, not a passive. A website's passive, right?
Yeah.
We need somebody that's going to be in there. That's going to come back and actually be like, "Hey, parents, we've got some information for you, and this is the information we've got."
Yeah, programs
And-
can be created, and one of the things that I would like to do as a newly elected school board member would be push for a newsletter. That would be an opt-in email, but it could talk about these issues. It could talk about what has recently been voted on and what's coming up on the next agenda to
Yeah.
get parents engaged in coming to school board meetings for something other than handing their kids awards.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be.
Because awards
good.
are great, You know, like
Yeah.
we should celebrate, you know, the accolades of our students, but there's
Stick
so much
around.
more
There's
to the
more to
process.
be-
Stick
There's so
around.
much more to the process.
Yeah.
And
In order to fix something, because there's lots of problems, and we're never going to be 100%
Right.
good at everything.
Right.
But you got to have that active feedback mechanism.
yeah,
I mean, it's just
And I
do.
think something else people don't understand is as taxpayers, we're allowed, these are open meetings. I've never had a child in any ISD because we homeschooled, and I show up to Conroe ISD school board meetings, I show up to Magnolia
That's right.
ISD meetings, and I can speak.
Yeah.
I can get up and, you know, sign in to speak on something
Yeah.
for my 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And so taxpayers need to be engaged in
Yes.
this process
you are a
because
stakeholder.
big time.
Yeah.
I know how much money we pay every year
That's right.
to schools that we don't, you know, even have a child in.
And as these areas continue to grow, they want to raise taxes.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
So we
They sure do.
can't allow that. I
No.
mean, one of the things that people don't realize is that, yeah, the areas are growing. That
Yes.
means more houses. That means more taxable income.
That's
That means
right.
Your taxes do not have to go up.
exactly.
They will take more money
They
if you
will,
let them.
and they
They
will
will,
waste it
but they
on
don't
things
need
like
to.
AstroTurf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars on
On
AstroTurf.
AstroTurf.
Yeah.
So, well, we are on the half hour.
Okay.
You said
Yeah.
a very, very key word. I'd like you to do me a favor, talk to the audience about what a stakeholder is and how they can become a stakeholder, a true stakeholder, an active stakeholder, so that these school systems can actually turn around in a direction that's positive to our local area, our state, and then ultimately our federal.
Yeah, absolutely. A stakeholder is anyone who pays taxes or is living in your community as a community member. Get active, get engaged, get out there, vote. There's 2 local elections on May 7th and May 24th. One is for school board as well as a couple of constitutional amendments, I believe. And then the 24th is going to be for precinct chairs and some contested seats. These are the most important elections that you can possibly vote in. And I know so many people only vote in presidential elections. And like, as you said, that's so far removed from what
It is.
affects us
That's
on a
true.
daily basis and what affects our children. So please get engaged, go to school board meetings. If you can't go to school board meetings, you know, check online. You know, there find out what's happening in your schools, find out what's happening at the local level with the, you know, your political leaders, and push back. If you're tired of the leftist indoctrination that is sweeping across this nation, speak up. You know, and don't be afraid to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Good advice. Good advice. Yeah. It's going to take us all being engaged.
Yeah.
It will.
Yeah.
Yeah. And more people stepping up.
Yeah.
That is
So
exactly
get involved.
right.
I
That's
do
right.
think it's a small few that's the squeaky wheel, and that's where we've gone. Is this small few have determined our paths, and it's like, nah, we're
Yeah.
gonna fix that.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
all right.
Absolutely. Very
Well,
good.
we're signing off.
Yep. Thank you for coming and joining
Thanks for
us
having
and-
me. This was great.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. It's a good
Excellent.
conversation.
Yes, very
Yeah.
good conversation. You're always invited.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank
So
you. I'd love to be
I
back.
think, I think we definitely found some good in all the muck
Absolutely.
here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's hope,
Absolutely.
people. There's
There
hope.
is hope.
There is.
Yeah.
There sure is.
So,
All right.
all right. Take care. Justin Loop here.
Thank
Cindy
you.
Phillips.
Keith Grant, come vote for me May 7th and May 24th. I'm on
Yes.
both ballots.
Outstanding.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
All right. Bye bye.